He's a big gambler, big. I mean, Michael gambles on everything from what my experiences, what I was told, and people that know him. Yeah.
The Michael Jordan story. That a former mafia boss just changed his own mind about that is not a sports journalist, and that is not a podcaster looking for clicks. A former mafia boss. A man who ran one of the biggest organized crime operations in American history. Just said on camera that Michael Jordan's gambling may have gotten his own father killed. Sit with that for a second. A man who lived inside the real machine.
There's a strong possibility that his father was murdered because he wasn't paying back his gambling debts.
I don't know, again, I can't be specific. I don't know if it wasn't paying back. I don't know what, again, the specifics of it were, but I was led to believe that it had something to do with his gambling problem.
Not the ESPN version, not the Nike version, is telling the world that the murder of James Jordan may not have been what anyone was told it was. For 30 years, the official story has never changed. James Jordan was murdered in a random robbery by two teenagers on a highway in North Carolina. Wrong place, wrong time. Case closed. The NBA moved on. Nike moved on. The billion-dollar brand kept printing money. Nobody ever seemed to want to revisit the details, because according to people like Michael Franzese, those details do not add up, and they never have. The questions never went away. Less than 3 months after his father's body was pulled from a swamp, Michael Jordan quit basketball. He was the most dominant athlete alive, in the absolute prime of his career. No injury, no decline, no warning. The press printed the retirement story exactly the way it was handed to them, and the public accepted it. A man who had just won 3 consecutive championships. A man who refused to lose at anything, suddenly decided he did not feel like competing anymore. What Franzese claimed was that Jordan did not walk away on his own, that he was told to leave, and that the most powerful sports league on the planet needed the greatest player who ever lived off the court before a different story came out. Once you hear his full account, everything you thought you knew about Michael Jordan starts to look different. Michael Franzese is not some internet personality chasing views. He was one of the biggest money earners the American mafia had seen since Al Capone, a Kappa regime in the Colombo crime family. He ran a gasoline bootlegging scheme that generated hundreds of millions of dollars. He operated at a level where information came from people embedded in every corner of American business, entertainment, and sports, people who moved money, people who collected debts, and people who allegedly knew what happened when those debts were not paid. When Franzese talks about what goes on behind closed doors, he is not guessing. Everything he shared came from what the people inside those rooms told him directly. His entire adult life played out in a world where bad information got you killed, and where trust was earned in blood. That is what made his claims so striking. What he described was not, in his telling, a random act of violence. According to him, it was a consequence, one born from the single thing Michael Jordan could never control, himself. Most people think they know this part already. Jordan loved competition, gambled on golf, on cards, on anything with a winner and a loser, and it was always treated as a quirk.
I think that's been debunked. I don't think that's true at this point in time, but it certainly was being talked about at that time because Michael had that gambling issue.
Harmless stuff, entertaining stuff, the kind of stories that made fans love him even more. Nobody wanted to look at the darker side of that impulse. And nobody wanted to ask what happens when a man who cannot stop competing starts playing games with people who do not shake hands and walk away when the money runs out. Franzese said it was not harmless at all, not just a competitor, but a gambler, on everything. When Franzese said that, he was not talking about $50 Nassau bets on the golf course. He was describing a pattern of behavior that people around Jordan allegedly knew about, that people inside the league allegedly knew about, and that people in circles far darker than basketball knew about too. The kind of gambling that does not stay in the locker room, the kind that follows you home, and the kind that, according to Franzese, follows your family. Gambling at that level is never just about money, it is about control. The same impulse that made Jordan the greatest competitor in basketball. That need to win combined with the belief that you are smarter and luckier than everyone else at the table. That impulse built a dynasty on the court. Off the court, if Franzese is to be believed, it opened doors that should have stayed shut. and put Jordan in rooms with people who only cared about what was owed. Now consider the timeline. In the summer of 1993, James Jordan pulled over on the side of a highway in North Carolina and fell asleep in his car. Two men approached and shot him. His body was not found for weeks. His car turned up across state lines. Two teenagers were eventually arrested and convicted. The official story was robbery, a crime of opportunity. For most people, that was enough. Case closed. Tragedy explained. The world moved on. Less than 3 months later, Michael Jordan retired.
I was told two things. One, that he was told to leave the NBA around the time that his father got murdered because stories were about to come out and there was a lot of heat on the fact that because of Michael's gambling habit, his father paid the price. And the NBA didn't want the press.
Walking away from the NBA at 30 years old, fresh off a three-peat, he told the press he lost the desire to play, that his father's death changed his perspective, that he wanted to try baseball. For 30 years, that is the version the world has accepted. Francesi said that is not what happened. According to Francesi, Jordan was told to leave, not asked politely, not given a suggestion, but told by the NBA. Stories were allegedly about to surface connecting Jordan's gambling to his own father's death, and the league could not afford to let that narrative reach the public. The NBA at that time was the fastest growing sports brand on the planet. Jordan was the engine, and engines do not run on scandal. If true, this was damage control at the highest level. The most valuable player in basketball history allegedly pulled off the court to protect every television deal, every sneaker contract, and every corporate sponsorship that depended on Jordan being untouchable. If Francesi is right, that was not a risk anyone was willing to take. The plan was always for him to come back. If that is true, think about what it means. The baseball chapter, the minor league bus rides and the batting cages.
So they asked him to leave for a while. That's when he went to play baseball. And then when things settled down, he came back. The plan was always, from what I was told, for him to come back.
According to Francesi, it was all a holding pattern, a carefully constructed distraction designed to keep the public looking one way while the real story quietly disappeared. Jordan sat there until the heat died down, and then, right on schedule, he came back. 5 words in March of 1995. I'm back. The greatest comeback in sports history. Nobody asked why the timing was so perfect. Nobody pressed on why 18 months turned out to be the exact right amount of time, and nobody wondered who decided that the coast was clear. The story just resumed, as if someone had pressed pause and then play again. If you believe Francesi's account, the beautiful part was that it worked. The baseball chapter became a charming footnote, a symbol of Jordan's love for his father. Jordan came back more beloved than when he left. The scandal never surfaced, and the machine kept running. Now consider who would have the power to make something like that happen, to tell the most famous athlete on the planet to walk away, and then bring him back when the moment is right. If true, that is an operation. And operations like that only happen when the stakes are high enough that failure is not an option. Francesi addressed where his information came from. Not someone on the fringes, not a friend of a friend, but somebody inside the NBA. Francesi knew this person well enough to consider them reliable. And Francesi is not a man who trusts easily. His entire adult life played out in an environment where misinformation gets people killed, and where you verify everything because your life depends on it.
I heard this from a source I believe was pretty knowledgeable, somebody I knew pretty well inside the NBA. So for me, it's secondhand information, but I thought it was reliable.
When he calls a source reliable, that carries a different weight than when a journalist does. If his account is accurate, then in his view, every piece connects. The gambling, the debts, the murder, the retirement, the comeback. But here is the part nobody wants to talk about. If what Francesi said carries even a fraction of truth, the cost of Michael Jordan's greatness may not have been just the broken opponents and the relentless pursuit of perfection. The cost in this telling may have been a man's life, his own father, 6 rings on his fingers, and a weight on his chest that no amount of championships could ever lift. It is important to say there is no confirmed evidence linking Michael Jordan's gambling to his father's death. 2 men were convicted of the murder. The official case has never been reopened. Many people accept that account entirely. But here's the twist that nobody expected. Franzese himself walked it back. In a later interview, the host revealed that he had personally sat down with Daniel Green, one of the two men convicted of the murder, currently serving life in prison. Green told him the killing had absolutely nothing to do with gambling, the mafia, or Michael Jordan's debts. James Jordan had pulled over near a motel that was known for drugs and illegal activity. Someone saw an easy robbery, and it turned into a murder. That was it. When Franzese heard this, he did not push back. The man who made the original claim, the former mob boss who said he had a reliable source inside the NBA, listened to the other side and accepted it.
Well, what you just said, described certainly puts a lid on it for me. I mean, I'm sorry if I even inferred that at the time, but that's what I heard. There was rumors going around and people were just speculating.
He acknowledged that what he had been told at the time was likely incorrect, that the rumors were flying because of Jordan's known gambling issues, and people filled in the blanks. The host then put it in perspective. The two men convicted were 18 years old. They drove around in Jordan's father's stolen Lexus for a week. One of them made a rap video at his house wearing James Jordan's watch and championship ring. These were not criminal masterminds orchestrating a hit over gambling debts. These were two teenagers who got caught up in something terrible. Franzese's response said everything. He listened and he changed his mind. So what do you do with a story like this? A former mob boss made a claim that shook everything people thought they knew about Michael Jordan. It spread across the internet. It became part of the legend. And for years, it sat there unanswered. Then, when he was confronted with the actual facts from someone who spoke to the people involved, he changed his mind. Maybe the real story here is not about whether Jordan's gambling got his father killed. Maybe it is about how quickly we believe the version that sounds the most cinematic, and how hard it is to let go of it, even when the truth is simpler and sadder. A man fell asleep in the wrong place, and two teenagers made the worst decision of their lives. If this changed the way you see the Jordan story, hit the like button. If you think there is still more to it, drop your take in the comments. And if you want more stories that go deeper than the headlines, subscribe, because we are just getting started.